At Liger, we're big on saying avoid the people who promise you the moon and the stars, the unicorn marketer who can deliver the amazing results next day and just blow your mind. Because you can pay a lot to see that as a short term. You can put a lot of ads out there that will give you a quick boost, as we mentioned in the last segment, but someone who actually gets to know your audience and can build organically a sustainable community for you out there and produces the thoughtful content that keeps you reappearing in search engines, and it has a broader understanding of how to deliver against a really nice strategy. I think those are the kinds of questions you want to ask, like, what is the process you'll take me through to reach a strategy, or is it a quick have a sale and I'll advertise it, and then you'll be a millionaire.
You'll have more clients that you know what to do with by tomorrow.
Right.
Thanks for listening to The Claw. I was speaking today with Cynthia Hayes. She's the Director of Client Services at Liger Partners. We talked about the metrics that matter that you should be talking to your team about to make sure that you know where to spend your marketing dollars and what's working and what's not. Welcome to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Visionary Partner at Liger Partners. We're in the Liger Studios. We're different, Cynthia. And she's like,
were you checking me on
that? Yeah. Who's here? Anyway, so today I'm going to be talking with Cynthia Hayes. She is the Director of Client Services for Liger Partners. And she sits on kind of an interesting seat. I always get to work on I get to do all the strategy and big ideas and all that wonderful stuff. And then it ends up over on the client services side,
where we actually execute, get everything done, measure all the things, make sure our clients are satisfied and that we're reaching their goals.
Yeah. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, because there's, sort of what does the CEO want to see versus what do the marketing people like to work on or do, and even the sales team. Like, how do we know that the sales team is actually being successful with these kind of marketing things that we're doing?
Right. And the sales team and the marketing team even talking and making sure they're aligned and working towards the same goals is sometimes an interesting conversation to have with the C-suite as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and even getting sales and marketing, because we'll often see companies where they kind of point at each other. Sales says, marketing's just sending us crap leads, or marketing says, we're sending leads over and sales isn't doing anything with them.
Right.
And that disconnect, you've wasted all your money on the front end if you've got kind of that situation in place.
That's right. And then there's the instances where marketing and sales are confused for one another. It's like expecting the marketing team to close a sale instead of to draw in all the leads and make things interesting so the sales team can follow up and close those sales. So there's a lot of confusion sometimes about who does what and whose lane is where.
Right.
But sales and marketing should be working in tandem together to accomplish the same strategies overall and the same goals.
Yeah, and it really, sales and marketing, which is often said together, which is a kind of a problem. Right?
Only for marketers and salespeople. We're like, there's a difference.
There's a difference. We're different. Why are you calling? But it is like a good marriage. In a good marriage, typically you've got like a spender and a saver.
Right.
So that way you're not completely broke.
That's
or,
right.
You've got one person who's very analytical and one who may be a little bit more creative. And sales and marketing works that way. They're two sides to a coin, and they need to kind of work healthily. That's not a word. They need to be healthy.
I like healthily.
Healthily?
That's a good one.
That. I don't think Jackie would let me.
No,
Jackie,
probably not.
Our lead writer would not.
Our lead writer might correct that.
Yeah, she might get rid of that.
She'll red pen you.
Yeah, so we sign a client and we bring them in,
Yep.
and we're take them through our discovery process, and we do their ROAR analysis. So what is their reality today? What are their opportunities, aspirations, and how do we know we were successful? And then your team is running the project, daily, making sure content's being created, doing all the things to make sure that all the things, because you are the director of all the things. What are some of the things that you wish the CEO or some of the executives maybe knew or paid less attention to as we're going through a project?
I think oftentimes what a lot of C-suite executives get caught up on perhaps are tactics and vanity metrics that look great on paper, but that don't necessarily convert into greater awareness or conversion on the back end of great leads going to their sales team. So I think like what Liger does so well is to come in and establish a broad strategy. It's very specific in its intent, and there'll be multiple tactics that feed into that one strategy. So rather than getting caught up in the one tactic over here and is that one thing doing what I want it to do, which is easy for 30,000 foot view people to be doing.
Right.
Instead of doing that, to focus on the overall strategy and how are all these different things playing together. So some of all the things that we do, it might be a podcast to grow some awareness, show thought leadership. It might be a PDF download on their website or a landing page that shows thought leadership that converts them into a sale for a particular service that a client offers. It might be an ad campaign. It could be an email drip campaign that goes out. There's lots of things that support an overall strategy.
Yeah.
So thinking bigger picture at the more strategic level and trusting that that's where the marketing team executes against, and that we try out a lot of different tactics to see what works for their audience.
Yeah, and it's funny to think about it because anybody running a company knows there's lots of parts to a company.
Right.
And to focus on one part of a part is not enough to show whether or not it's successful or not, right?
Right. Like you wouldn't focus on the mail room of a large internal company and hyper focus on why isn't the mail being delivered on time when there's all these other things happening.
Well, even is it the letters within the mail, right? Like it's like just one little
Is the stamp straight on that envelope?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, and I love cooking analogies, like, is my butter within the, was the butter wrong when we made the cake, It's a cake. We have a cake, right?
Yeah, we have a delicious cake.
We have a delicious cake.
Made.
Yeah. So some of the vanity metrics that, I see companies concentrating all the time on, and it's really a problem because we try to teach people marketing. So like, we're like, oh, here's some best practices. The problem with best practices in marketing is they change all the time.
They do evolve. They do.
Oh, yeah. So if you're still stuck in some of the metrics that maybe you heard a while back, and maybe you didn't know you heard them a while back, then you could be, looking at what we call vanity metrics.
Right. Like how many followers do I have on Facebook or LinkedIn versus how many people are actually engaging with that content? Like for us, that's a much more meaningful number. They could be, following you, but not seeing your stuff, not caring about it, not engaging. But if they're commenting on it, then it added some kind of value to them. We hit some kind of attention trigger that motivated them enough to respond, to share it. Like those things are meaningful actions that we want to see for our clients.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And not knowing, the getting someone to like or follow a page is very, very tough now.
Yeah.
It's very tough.
There's so much noise, right?
Yeah.
So if you can distinguish yourself as worthy of their attention, right, some way, either you're entertaining, you're super educational, you're just really interesting, you're different, whatever it is that makes you stand out as not being just another boring thing that comes across their feed, right? Then we struck gold. Then we can start to nurture that lead a little bit. And then when you start showing up in all the other places associated with the same strategy, that repetition then can lead to that conversion.
Yeah. And what's interesting to me too is not thinking about the long-term life of something. So like you go write a blog post or you talked about a landing page. So a landing page is a place that you might bring someone to download a PDF or get more information on your company.
Watch a video.
And we'll launch those. And in the first 30 days, they're like, oh, we didn't get anybody to that landing page. And it's a slow burn, right? You might not get anyone to the landing page, or you might get a few people to the landing page over the course of the beginning, but it's looking at that asset over time.
Right.
Yeah.
Because your cycle of when you want to get attention might not exactly line up with a buying cycle on the other side, right? So they may not be in the market for a refrigerator right now, but they know you make refrigerators. And a year from now, when they're in the market, they're going to be like, oh, I remember seeing that thing from this company about amazing refrigerators.
Yeah.
Now's my chance. I'm going to follow up. And if you're consistently putting things in front of them, then they know where to go when they are in the market. And that repetition is key. Like all of us, like how much email do we receive every day? But if we're seeing the same name there and it's following us on social media or in ads, digitally, then that repetition is like, oh yes, I remember that brand. I know it exists. So when I'm ready, I know where to go.
I was on a podcast earlier with Courtney, who's new to the team.
Yes.
And she taught me how to save things in Instagram now so that I can go back to them.
Yeah.
Do you know how to do that?
No. I'm like, this is what I need.
I know. I was telling her how I did it, and she's like, okay, let me tell you something.
Let me help you.
Let me help you, because I took pictures of them and put them in my photo roll. And
Okay.
go back and look for them later. Yeah. So, which means that company has no idea that the ad that they showed me 6 months ago is the reason I bought that product.
That's today. Right. That's not a metric they are able to measure. No,
not at all. I mean, I'm purposefully saving interesting things I see, because I have people who are hard to buy for. We all do, right?
Sure.
And now that when we have the experiences where you couldn't give somebody a trip or whatever, it's like, okay, now I got to really figure out something, right? So the direct correlation, which always sounds like a cop-out, right? Like, as the marketing people, it sounds sort of like a cop-out. We're like, well, the direct correlation is hard to get to, and then the executive kind of rolls their eyes at us.
Particularly for like relational type brands, right? Yeah. So if you're in the insurance business or medical or something, there's, if you're not doing a quick transaction with a consumer, like, buying a hair clip or something, there's a long term for B2B in particular, right? Relational brands, bigger purchases involve more time. There's a longer lag time, probably, between the first time they've seen it to the time they actually engage to even have a conversation with someone at the company about it, to learn if it really is the thing for them. So, I think that long-term perspective is really huge, and not to hold like, what can we do in 30 days?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you could do a spike. Sure. We could spike it up, and then it's just going to fall back again until you put that same budget behind it, and then you can spike it up.
Yeah.
And it's like, we'd rather see our clients like organically really grow their audience, their reach, their following, grow that brand loyalty over time so it sustains and doesn't just drop off.
Yeah, and I'm amazed even for our own business. We had a couple leads come in this past week, and they're people who got something from us like 8 months ago.
Yeah.
8 months ago.
Right.
Like we traced it back, and we stayed in front of them in a significant enough way that first touch point was, and they've reached out to us to talk to us again.
Right.
And they just weren't ready to buy at that point, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you're not in the market to do it, if you don't have a need, you don't really pay attention to it.
People may be switching jobs, and now in their new job, they can do the thing they always wanted to do. So
I saw a funny LinkedIn post about that the other day. So some guy had gone to a new company, and he's now like their director of marketing.
Okay.
And he said he said he'd had more salespeople hit him up like the day he made the switch. Right.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm at this new job, and he put up a LinkedIn post. He's like, seriously, people, I just got here.
Like, my desk is just...
He's like, I don't even know what I'm doing. So I cannot buy anything from you yet because I don't know what I need.
I don't know our existing vendors. I don't know anything
right.
yet.
Like, send me a thank you, a congratulations, maybe, tell me a little bit about your company, but I'm not buying anything from you probably for 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Because I got to get my feet wet, understand my job, understand what I'm doing. And talking about relational, when the decision is expensive or there's a lot of fear and uncertainty around it, the longer it's going to take for me to make that decision. And the more I'm going to spend time in other parts of the ecosystem, I'm not going to listen to your message because you're going to lie to me. You're going to tell me all your stuff's great.
Right.
I want to go find reviews, and I want to find other places things have been authored about what it is that you do in order to kind of feel complete about that.
Right, to feel like you're educated enough that you can defend the decision you make when you finally do pull the trigger. That person wants to be able to say they've done their research, right? They've looked at the competition, right? They've compared, which is why it's so important to call out what makes you different, because then that makes you rise above. Like, if you're doing the same thing as your competition, okay.
Yeah.
So then what's the, I don't know, price, whatever.
Right.
Right? But if there's something that really stands out that makes you different, you add that extra thing, that extra service, you call it out, to bring it to the forefront, then all of a sudden they've got a reason to choose you over someone else, and they can say that to whoever questions their choice, right? So it's like, oh yeah, I looked around and this one does this extra thing, right? So then they look extra smart, and that's the kind of stuff that we pull out at Liger. We're like, what makes you unique? Like, what is your unique brand story that we can really highlight in a bunch of different contexts so that you stand out above your competition?
Yeah, because nothing. So our tagline is saving the world from boring, broken marketing. Because if you're going to market and it's going to be boring, you might as well not do it. It's just going to end up as crowd noise.
It's going to get lost. Like
2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like so many do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so in thinking about, setting up that, it seems to me, because, you end up with you have to toe the line, right, on the client services side, because the big idea gets created, we start to put things together. Are you often finding yourself reminding the client of, hey, remember this was the big idea that we're working against?
We do recast that vision for the strategy, and then we also evolve and adjust the tactics on the back end. So if, we agree upon KPIs up front, what we're, our key performance indicators, what we're going to be measuring against, then we'll switch up tactics to make sure we hit those. So we stay focused on the strategy and the results we want to see, and then everything else can be fluid in between. We do all the things well.
Right.
So it's yes. The short answer is yes, we recast that vision.
Well, and I tell people we're like almost like a financial advisor. So we're looking at your marketing mix. What is the budget that you have? Mm-hmm. And you're adjusting based on the environment.
That's right.
Like right now, this might be better, that might be better. And regrettably, it changes more often than I think executives understand.
Sure.
Like accounting is accounting. Like POs, accounts payable, accounts receivable. Marketing, like the thing I told you 18 months ago, I might not tell you to do today.
Right. Because, people aren't hearing. They won't receive the message that way anymore. We've got either too many people have joined that, or they've abandoned that thing, whatever it is. That's the beauty of getting to see, from the marketing perspective, a wide variety of industries and audiences and how they're performing, because we can then kind of do that mixtape of what will actually showing my age.
Oh, that's awesome.
What will actually work.
I've never thought of that. We have got to do a campaign around a mixtape of marketing. That is awesome. Marketing. I love it. All right. Well, we're going to go to commercial break, and when we get back, I want to talk a little bit about, looking at those metrics. They're a smoking gun. Like how often should I be looking at them? What are the kind of metrics I might consider? And then what would a metric potentially mean? Like what might I do to my marketing mix based on that?
Thanks so much for watching the Claw podcast. We'll be back after this short break.
Hi, we're Liger Partners. We save the world from boring, broken marketing from our headquarters in Atlanta.
We are so grateful to be a finalist for Agency of the Year at the Tag Marketing Awards. This is going to be held March 2nd through March 3rd.
If you're interested in attending this event, use the code below. We hope to see you there.
And we're back. You're listening to The Claw. I'm talking today with Cynthia Hayes. She is the Director of Client Services. I'm Eric Holtzclaw. I'm the Managing Visionary Partner at Liger Partners.
Lots of titles,
yes, I might have changed my name.
Just make it up as you go.
Yeah. Depends on what you look at. It could be one thing or another. And we're talking today about, specifically metrics. So how do I know, like I'm going to spend this money with you, and I want to know that it's working. If I am one of these executives in a company and I'm trying to figure out like what metrics should I look at and at what cadence, there are things, weekly, quarterly, monthly, we have clients who something will happen and we're like, seriously, like it just went out, right? So like what should I look at what cadence as it relates to metrics?
So there's some things that have a really, we want to keep an eye on weekly, like social media. How is that performing? Do we need to adjust a calendar for the next week? Do we need to boost it, an ad or a post because it's performing, really well organically? So those things, we keep a tighter eye on, not necessarily reporting to the client constantly on that, but we're watching that.
Right.
Monthly, at least, we're watching, basic things like website traffic, website flow, SEO performance. Overall, are we, engaging a lot on their social media channels? If we had put out, an ad campaign, just noting how that's performing. Are there any minor tweaks that need to be made? We're not going to scrap something right away unless it totally is, bombing for some reason. But, it's just that doesn't ever happen. So if minor tweaks need to be made to something, then that's a time to review, adjust, measure, against our strategy that we've agreed on, against the key performance indicators that we've agreed on up front, to take a look at those things. Longer term, there might be an email campaign that's 2 months long. We want to give it time to do what it does. People need that repetition of seeing it in their inbox multiple times before they open. They might open it and not take the action for 3 more emails. That's a thing, and that's okay. That's all part of the campaign, right?
Yeah, especially if you've got going against a list that hasn't been used in a while. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If you're well, I have this list of people that bought from me 6 years ago.
Certainly no one has changed jobs. They
No.
haven't changed email addresses or anything, right?
No, I'm not going to get any bounces.
And we're looking for a response rate over the course of the emails. So
Right.
even for our own company, we do some outbound campaigns and we're looking for a return, but that return is not on the first email. It's not on the second email. It's by the 4th email. We know that we should be getting a certain percentage of returns. And in some cases, those returns are, go jump in a lake. I don't want to talk to you, but at least we know the person saw it and that they responded.
And
in
it's
some
still
way.
helpful.
Yes.
Because you're after the people who are interested, in your services. So if they're not,
What, you mean everybody doesn't want my services right now?
not today. They might a year from now. So don't give up.
Don't give
But
up. Yeah.
not today. Just because that
So
one
you're
thing.
saying there's a chance.
There's always a chance. Yes, definitely.
Well, and what it sounds like, and this is the first time I've ever really thought of it this way, is that measurement is directly related to how hard it may have been to put that together. So if a social media post is pretty quick, and so I should probably be measuring that pretty quickly, right? But email campaigns, it can take us 2 or 3 months to put together the right sequence, the right things behind
The right
it.
graphics.
Yeah.
Is the call to action right?
Yeah, the website, even though it's hard to build, is a consistent, constant thing. So, kind of looking at it on, are we getting people to the website? And honestly, people, if you're getting people to the website and they're not just immediately call me, it's okay. It really is.
Yeah, because you don't know where they are in their cycle, right?
Yeah.
Their research, and their personality too, right? Some people are heavy researchers. They want to look at 80 different sites. They want to gather all the information because the website's like your best brochure, right? So everyone has put their best foot out there. They want to gather all that information. Some people have totally checked you out on social media. They found you on Medium. You've written articles. They've seen you in different publications. They've heard, your podcast, whatever. They've already decided. So they come to your website and they're calling you, or they're pushing that, buy now button.
Right.
In a lot of cases, but it took all those other touch points over
21 of them.
at least. Yeah.
At least.
Typically.
Yeah.
It's they don't even realize how many times they've
yeah.
seen you. They think they've seen you twice or whatever, but really you've actually been in front of them multiple times because we can see that. We can see that they, they at least saw you several times before they pulled the trigger on anything.
Yeah, and most buyers nowadays are very sophisticated. They know that the second they touch a digital property that you can start retargeting them, that that they've been there. So they will actively avoid your website and your digital properties to learn about your company before they then finally
until they're ready. And reviews are huge, right? It's they're going to see what other people are saying about you who have already purchased. So the Google My Business reviews, Facebook review, all these review spots, Yelp, whatever, they're a big deal in helping to inform people about what the experience will actually really be like, not what you say it's going to be like, but what it will actually be like when they interact with your company.
But I'm a CEO and I want you to tell me this one thing is the thing that tipped it over.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Which is the most frustrating thing for marketers. Because we can say, based on this awareness campaign we did where no one's purchasing during an awareness campaign.
Right.
It's really just growing your reach so more people know you exist, right? And so you're like, based on this awareness campaign, we see lots of, people are starting to actually mention you. They're talking, like those are the things we would measure, right? Are they sharing things? Are they mentioning me, my company in their posts or whatever? Yeah. So to trace that back to, and so it brought in, these $5 this month is, it just takes time to see strategies play out, to know that you're doing well and responding, and the customers are responding to what you're doing.
Yeah, and so in the the category of thinking about that person who comes back to you and they are concerned about how a campaign's performing or whatever, what are some of the things that you look at, or what are some of the ways that you can, because that's the point at which there's the risk that they'll abandon it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll decide just to stop doing it because they're not seeing the results. Is there some kind of way to kind of get them around the corner to thinking about it differently?
3 minutes.
So where we start is always revisiting our strategy, because it's easy to get lost in the day-to-day activities, especially when you're at the C-level dealing with multiple issues, right? Not just marketing, like multiple issues across the board. So reminding them of, what we heard, the strategy is, and revisiting that, making sure that still does resonate, because maybe there's a potential merger or acquisition on their radar now, and we need to be thinking about things in a different way. So we can adjust the strategy then, set new KPIs, against that, all of those things. But if they're having a knee-jerk reaction to the performance of one particular tactic, then that's where we as marketers try to educate, explain the why, show some examples. We have decks where we're like, this customer was doing this thing and did really well. Let's give this time, right? So showing those samples of how things have played out to give them confidence that this could work. Let me relax just for a minute. I'll trust you, But, the onus is on us to provide that data, to share and to educate. And then at the end of the day, it's the client's call, right?
Yeah. Well, but I like the strategy is the North Star. So we continue to look, towards that. And then knowing that regrettably in these situations, when you go and have surgery, after the surgery's over, it's painful for a while before you feel better. And some of this, it's like that. Like we're coming in and we're having to figure out how to really position the company. We've got to change a bunch of the infrastructure on the back end, get the thing going. And then our intent is to move it from being a slot machine, because most executives look at their marketing as a slot machine.
Right. I put in a quarter, I want $1 back.
Right. Well, and they're not sure if they're going to get the dollar. We want to make it a vending machine, right? So if you put a quarter in, you're at least going to get a Coke, right? So like that, what does that formula look like, and how do we make that kind of work on the end of the day? And as I'm, vetting a firm, so let's say that I'm a marketing executive and I'm trying to pick someone to work with, what are some things that maybe I should look for or avoid as it relates to maybe this category of metrics?
At Liger, we're big on saying avoid the people who promise you the moon and the stars, the unicorn marketer who can deliver the amazing results next day and just blow your mind, because you can pay a lot to see that as a short term. You can put a lot of ads out there that will give you a quick boost, as we mentioned in the last segment, but someone who actually gets to know your audience and can build organically a sustainable community for you out there and produces the thoughtful content that keeps you reappearing in search engines, and it has a broader understanding of how to deliver against a really nice strategy. I think those are the kinds of questions you want to ask, like, what is the process you'll take me through to reach a strategy? Or is it a quick, have a sale and I'll advertise it, and then you'll be a millionaire.
You'll have more clients that you know what to do with by tomorrow. Right. Yeah. Like, probably not. And knowing that if you're buying advertising, there's like this secret, right? If you're going to go out and spend a huge budget on advertising, the advertisers want you to get traffic. So if I'm driving a lot of traffic and it's not converting, it's not whatever, the traffic was worthless. Like
Right.
it may have just been traffic for the sake of traffic, right? You did something funny. It was an interesting message. There was a way to kind of compel people there. But if they then get to that place and they don't take the next step, unless you really are just doing awareness, and then that's how you should be measuring it. You need to worry about spending it when you know what you're spending it on.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, nice. Well, I was glad having you hang out on the Claw podcast.
Thanks for having me,
I
Eric.
know. So I've been talking today with Cynthia Hayes. She's the Director of Client Services, or the Director of all things at Liger Partners. I am Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Visionary Partner. Thanks for joining us on the Claw, and until next time.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Claw podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, rate and review this podcast. And if you or someone you know wants to make an appearance on this show, email us at yourbestie@ligerpartners.com.